So what is meditation?
Meditation is, in a way, a wise use of our consciousness. On a superficial level, we associate meditation with calmness, with concentration, with inner quiet. But it's a huge range of use of the mind, use of the awareness, from quietening down, cooling down, if you like, concentrating and feeling present, to the full range of exploring truth, exploring existential reality, deeply discovering the unknown, things that are not really available through the normal thinking mind. So it's really a whole huge territory beyond the regular thinking conceptual mind.
Okay. And who should meditate?
Well, I think that it's not mandatory, but it's really, really helpful for everybody. Because otherwise we find ourselves on automatic pilot. We are constantly doing, functioning, performing our roles, busy, thinking, and we lose our life on the process. And I think all of us need time to stop, time to recollect where we are, time off, time to rest the mind, time to contemplate. And so basically I think everyone should meditate. If you take meditation in its widest role, it doesn't mean that everyone has got to be a Buddhist, or everyone's got to be a Christian contemplative, or everyone's got to be a Jewish Kabbalah practitioner. But I think that it's in a way in our birthright that we have access to ways and methods and directions of wise use of our consciousness, and why not?
And you mentioned there some of the different practices and different paths. Why are there so many different practices and paths, and is one better than others?
Well, I think that here is a deep wisdom which takes a while to learn. One of the issues is cultural, that meditation or the spiritual life is really drawing its roots out of cultural life. So cultural life will offer some answers and some directions and some language and a field, if you like, of daily life practice. And from that grows, is rooted in that, grows the kind of lotus of deep spiritual practice. So it's going to take on the form of every culture. And so one of the wise things to do is to be aware of your culture, of what's in, if you like, the cultural unconscious or subconscious, and that will guide you to your, if you like, preferred direction. There are so many ways, because we start with so many different personalities, so many different cultures, so many different tendencies. I mean, the Buddha taught traditionally 80,000 forms of meditation, and it's simply because he met 80,000 people and each one needed a different starting point, a different ground. So one of the subtle things is to really understand where we are as people and what talks to us. And there's a lot of unknown in this, a lot of fate. I mean, for example, the Western culture is often not very guru-oriented, but is a kind of natural wisdom orientation. So many Westerners learn many different ways of practicing and get very confused. But it is in the Western culture, and it's all right. When people ask me that question, I say, no, it's fine. We're a wisdom culture. Weave your track through that. Small story. Someone in a lecture that I heard from a Zen master, someone in the audience said, I get up in the morning, I do a bit of yoga, then I do Kabbalah meditation, then I do some Tantra, then I do Vipassana. Is that good? And the teacher said, it actually doesn't matter what you do as long as your life depends on it.
So, are there any negatives of meditating?
I think that there are some negatives. There is, first of all, some people who really are not ready for it and shouldn't meditate intensively, or even shouldn't touch it at certain points in their life. For example, people with psychotic episodes. Meditation is a kind of inflation or a balloon of the inner world, and if there's deep disturbance in the inner world, it's better to get that sorted out and then meditate. In the Jewish mystical tradition, they say only someone that's got a job, married, and above 40 should actually start meditating. I think we can go a bit further than that, but people who are not balanced really should be careful and get really good guidance if they want to start. The other thing is, it's sometimes you need wise teaching, because you can go way off track. You can get obsessed, you can go with books that tell you one thing, and you just go way off into some kind of sidetrack, dead end, or extreme. And this does happen, and you really need guidance or a teacher. You don't need a guru, but you need wise teaching to navigate through the minefield. So be careful of extremes. I think that's one of the other dangers.
And do you yourself have a specific way of teaching?
It's an interesting question. I've been teaching now 15 or 20 years, and I constantly change. I don't have a kind of a fixed frame in which I teach all the time. I mean, I've never given the same talk twice. I always redo my talks and redo my instructions, and I try and be spontaneous. But I see that I generally keep to the Buddha Dharma. My authority is the Buddha. He is still, to me, the greatest guru that this planet has, whose teachings exist on this planet and is available. And one of the reasons is the availability of his teachings. The depth and wisdom and extent of the vast teachings of the Buddha Dharma are mind-boggling, and so I align myself with the Buddha Dharma. And in the modern world, I think it's really suitable for us, with minimum confusion and covering over with rituals, with religious language, with authority, with hierarchy, with priesthoods, etc., etc. So the Buddha Dharma as it's existing today is a great gift, and I align myself in my teaching with there. I teach a lot of retreats. Last year I taught 20 retreats. But on the other hand, I bring a lot of other things into the Buddha Dharma, because we are in the Western culture. So I'm Jewish. I bring a lot of the Jewish tradition in there, in the appropriate way, with the appropriate language, according to the appropriate audience. I bring in Western, more intellectual sources. I bring in quite a lot of the non-dual Advaita teachers of India. I spent years in India, and I've had a great influence from Krishnamurti and Nisargadatta Maharaj and Indian non-dual teachers. So they come into my teaching. But I would say that's the core. The core is the Buddha Dharma, more Vipassana orientation with other culturally appropriate forms as needed.
And when you use the term Dharma, what do you mean by Dharma?
One of the most difficult words that you can and probably one of the most difficult questions that you can ask. I regard it as the truth and the way towards it at the same time. So, shall we say, a deeper truth and the unfolding of it together at the same moment, because there really can't be a difference between the way to it and the truth that's uncovered. So I would say the deeper truth of the way things are, which is uncovered by the way towards it, which is also Dharma. And I think that's the best way I can describe it.
And you were saying that you find the Buddhist teachings very accessible. In what way? are they readily accessible?
I think that they're accessible, firstly, in the directness of the language with which the Buddha Dharma is available to us today. And the Buddha, don't forget, taught instructional teaching. He didn't teach great long historical, mythological texts. He taught, all his talks are instructional. So that's available, and that's been preserved for 2,500 years. Now, if you can consider what's happened in the with Western spirituality, for example, the words of Jesus, or the words of Moses, or there's been just generation after generation of destruction and recreation, cultural layers, priesthoods, medieval analytic teachings, and it's really, really hard to access the core, clear, naked spiritual teachings from under all that mess of history. Whereas with the Buddha Dharma we don't have that. We can go straight, open the page, and there'll be instructions on, as the Buddha said, find a tree, sit down, put your attention in front of you, let go fretting and coveting and hankering after the world, and bring your attention inside and start. That's so pure and so clear and so clean and naked, and it's beautiful that it's available.
And you're the founder and senior teacher at Tovana in Israel.
Yes.
Could you say something about that?
Yeah. It started about 25 years ago when I was actually rather tired of having to go on a plane to get any Buddhist teaching at all. So I decided to invite Buddhist teachers to Israel, which didn't exist at all at that time. There was no Dharma whatsoever. And I invited Buddhist teachers, set up retreats, and eventually founded the Israel Insight Society, which is Tovana, which is a society or an organization that's there specifically to establish and to teach Dharma in Israel. So I founded it then, and I became the senior teacher. And it's now, I would say, the biggest Buddhist meditation organization in Israel. It has around 8,000 people in the mailing list. We have, this year, we have around 35 retreats, many classes as well, and groups all over the country. And so in a small country, population 6,000, it's quite a big organization relative to the size of the country. It's very successful. It's very interesting because we run everything on a dana basis. We don't charge for any of our retreats. People pay at the end what they can afford, for including sleeping and accommodation and the teachers. And it's run largely on a volunteer basis. So volunteers really do everything. And it's quite unusual in the West, where similar organizations are often run needing a big staff, very expensive and so on. So we try to keep it a volunteer-based organization, very fresh, very enthusiastic, full of inquiring people, young people as well, coming out of the army and searching for something, and they find us. So it's in a very good phase. It's a beautiful organization, and I'm really delighted to be part of it and to be teaching Dharma in Israel.
Thank you. And just finally, if you could give advice to anyone watching this video, what would you say?
I would say, firstly, if you could have one thing, one question in front of you all the time, ask yourself, what do I really know? And just keep asking that question in your life. What's important and what do I really know? And you keep with those questions again and again and again, and they'll be your kind of flagship through life. And don't postpone things till tomorrow. I mean, now, the time is now, and I would just go for the highest spiritual teaching that you can find that's available to you right now.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.